right, welcome! Today, we're going to connect two worlds you probably never thought would meet. A legendary 19th century novelist and the C-suite. We're going to dive into how Dostoevsky, of all people, gives us the key to unlock the hidden stories that are really running your organization. So yeah, I know what you're thinking. What on earth can some old novelist teach a modern CEO? Well, it's not about writing the next great novel. It's about learning to hear the dozens of competing conversations that are happening inside your company every single day. The real secret to leadership, it's learning how to listen to all of them at once. And to get there, you gotta meet a literary theorist named Mikhail Bakhtin. He looked at Dostoevsky's novels and came up with this brilliant term, the polyphonic novel. See, what he meant was that instead of one all-knowing author telling you what's what, the story unfolds through a bunch of different, totally independent voices. And the craziest part, they're all equally important. No single voice gets to drown out the others. And that right there is the perfect description of any company. You know, your official mission statement, that's just one story. You've also got the story your frontline team is telling, the one HR tells, the one investors are hearing, and of course, the real story that gets whispered around the water cooler. They're all happening at the same time. And believe it or not, they're all part of your company's reality. Okay, so to get our heads around this, let's start by thinking about space. I want you to picture your organization not as one solid thing, but more like a big house with a whole lot of different rooms. And in each room, a different story is being told. There's a name for this idea, Tamerland. It comes from this really cool immersive play where the audience has to follow different actors into different rooms, and you only ever hear the piece of the story that's happening in that room. It's the same in your organization, isn't it? The story you hear totally depends on which room you happen to be in. Just think about it for a second. In the CEO's office, the story of that big product launch is all about strategy and market disruption. But you go down to the customer service floor, and the story is about angry callers and software glitches. Now here's the kicker. Both of those stories are true. And as a leader, you absolutely have to hear both to have any clue what's really going on. So, we've covered the space where stories happen. But what about the time? If Tamerland is all about the where, our next idea is about the when. We're talking about those little stories that are trying to tell you what's coming next. They have a name, anti-narratives. These aren't fully baked stories yet. They're more like pre-stories. Think about the rumor mill churning about a possible merger, or the quiet buzz from the engineers about a new technology that could change everything. They're these fragile, predictive whispers that give you a heads up about what's around the corner way before it ever becomes an official announcement. Okay, so having all these different voices, all these stories, that sounds pretty healthy, right? But here's the thing. What happens when it's mismanaged? What happens when leaders get scared and try to force one single story on everybody? Well, that's when things start to get really dangerous. It really comes down to a choice between two very different ways of being. On the one hand, you've got a healthy polyphony. It's messy, sure, but it's full of open dialogue and it embraces complexity. On the other hand, you've got the monologic hierarchy. This is that rigid top-down world where one official story is blasted from the top and all other voices are silenced. And let me tell you, that's where innovation goes to die. And this top-down approach leads to some huge mistakes. You get what's called ideological simplification, where every complex issue gets boiled down into a simple good guys versus bad guys story. But maybe the worst one is this, the neglect of unfinalizability. It's a mouthful, I know, but it describes a really dangerous impulse. The need to shut down a conversation and yell "the end" before the story has even had a chance to play out. So it's one thing to see the problem. But the real magic here is that this whole way of thinking comes with practical tools to actually diagnose and heal these storytelling issues. This is where we move from just talking about it to actually doing something about it. And you can see how it works right here. For every problem, there's a real-world approach. For instance, if leaders keep trying to finalize stories too early, you can use tools like Seam to encourage storytelling that evolves over time. Or if people's voices are being turned into puppets just spouting the company line, other methods help you co-create stories that feel authentic again. The whole point is, for every way a voice can be silenced, there's a way to turn the volume back up. Let me give you a quick example. It's called the Tamarland map exercise, and it's incredibly powerful. You literally get a whiteboard and draw out the different storytelling rooms in your company. Then you figure out, okay, which rooms are shouting and which ones are just whispering. And from there, you can actually design ways to connect those rooms and bring some balance back to the conversation. Here's another amazing tool, the anti-narrative tracker. It's basically a systematic way to listen for those whispers about the future we were talking about. By just taking a moment to write down these little pre-stories, you start to see patterns. You spot risks nobody else sees, and you find opportunities way before your competition even knows they exist. It's basically an early warning system for your entire organization. Look, if there is only one thing you remember from all of this, please let it be this. The single biggest mistake a leader can make is to shut down the conversation too soon. The second you declare a story finished, you murder all the other amazing possibilities that were still just waiting to be born. So what does this all mean? It completely reframes what a leader is supposed to do. Your job isn't to be the author of the one true company story. Your job is to be the chief facilitator of a complex, sometimes messy, but always open-ended conversation. You're there to host the polyphony, not to give a monologue. And the best part? You don't have to make this up as you go. The research this whole explainer is based on actually lays out 8 distinct tools, just like the ones we've talked about, to help you get a handle on the many voices in your organization. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. In your own organization right now, whose story is the one that's dominating every conversation? And even more importantly, which voices, which essential stories are being silenced? Because the answer to that question might just hold the key to your entire future.